I see a lot of the cameras are turned off. I am going to ask for active participation today. So you can keep it muted, but cameras on. As Gary Keller says, how you show up to training is how you show up to real estate. So let's try to go 100% and give it our all today. Okay. And with that, we are going to get started. Let me just fire this up here. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about open houses. And before we get started on that, we're just going to go quickly over the stuff that we always do at the beginning of Ignite, just to keep in mind what we're talking about with what successful agents do every day. We're here to learn how to grow our business, and the way that we grow our business is by focusing on lead generation for both buyers and sellers, making seller listing presentations and getting listings, and making buyer presentations and getting listings. And then also preview real estate. So here we go. Let's open it up with a discussion. I did mean it when I said we're going to do some active participation on what you guys think the benefits of open houses are.
Leads.
What was that?
Lead generation.
Lead generation. And when we're doing open houses, are we trying to do lead generation for buyers or for sellers?
Buyers.
Buyers. Anyone else? So when you host an open house, guys, you're actually doing lead generation for both buyers and sellers. And the reason you can get sellers is from a couple of different ways. One, a lot of neighbors are going to go by the open house, and if they see what you're doing and they like the job that you're doing and they're considering selling, then that's a perfect time to convert those seller leads into new listings. Also, if you get a buyer, it could be a situation where the buyer needs to sell their current home before they can purchase a home, in which case you can get 2 transactions from just one client, just like that. So we really want to be focusing on listings and on buyers when we're holding open houses. Some more benefits about open houses are they're going to be pretty inexpensive compared to other leads. You know, in real estate, we have a lot of different options where we can spend money to try to get leads. Like you can do things like Zillow leads and pay for them there. You can sign up for referral programs like OpCity, where they want to take 35% of your commission. There's a whole bunch of different ways that you can get leads, and they're going to just take hand over fist of your profit. But open houses are a really nice way to get a lot of exposure and a lot of leads without having to break the bank. So it's a really good option to consider doing it. There's a lot of high ROI based off of how much you put in to how much exposure you get as well, because you're going to be putting up signs all over the city or area that you are. And if you have it branded correctly, that means that you're going to get a lot of people coming through. A lot of people seeing your face means that your brand is going to have a chance to grow and expand. Also, it's one of the only times in real estate where we get to talk to people who are actually excited to talk about real estate. You know, if you're doing door knocking or cold calling, and you're doing something like a farming area, or even if you're talking to expired listings, a lot of those people aren't going to be happy to talk to you. They're going to hang up. They're going to say no. They're just going to want to get you out of their face. But with open houses, you have a situation where people are actually coming to you to talk about real estate. So it's a really great way to get started, especially if you're not the best with conversations about converting or talking to prospects yet. It's a really great way to sort of ease your way into the situation with talking to potential leads in a situation where you control the environment, rather than being in a situation where you might not feel extremely comfortable. It's also a extremely productive way to meet multiple buyers and sellers, as we discussed a little bit earlier, We're going to be holding open houses with lots of neighbors coming through. We're going to have a lot of qualified buyers coming through. So there's a lot of benefits to think about hosting an open house. And a fun fact for you guys, according to NAR's 2019 profile of home buyers and sellers, 51% of all buyers use an open house as a source of information for their home search. So it's a must-have tool. Definitely anytime you're going to be doing a listing, or even if you don't have a listing, you should be considering doing an open house every week and trying to schedule an open house every week. So the open house prospecting model, what this is going about is really saying that for hosting an open house, we have a couple objectives, right? We want to sell the house for the most money possible, and that means getting it the most exposure possible, but also we want to be prospecting for ourselves. If you guys recall reading in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, for every correct listing marketed correctly, you should get two pieces of business, one buyer and another listing. And an open house is probably the most important way that you can market the listing properly, because again, you're going to get a whole bunch of qualified leads coming in. You're going to have a chance to make real connections and real conversations with them. And you're in a position where you can show them how you work. The biggest problem that we have as real estate agents is we have to convey the message of how we're different than the next agent out there, right? So many times we're competing with a whole bunch of agents, and the clients don't know what we do. They don't know how we provide the additional service to them and how we go the extra mile. But if you're hosting an open house, you don't really have to sell all of that. It's pretty obvious with the way that you compose yourself and how you host the open house. They'll be able to see it instead of you trying to convince them, oh, this is what I do to go extra to get your house sold for the most money as quickly as possible. They'll be able to see it with their own eyes, and seeing is believing. So that's one of the benefits of the open house, is we really want to use it to prospect as much as we can. So this is going to be our prospecting model for open houses for Ignite. It's going to have three main stages: prepare, prospect, and pursue. And we're going to go over all of these different steps later in the presentation. These are really the most important pillars for your open house and what you want to do to be successful. Now, we are going to be talking about making some phone calls later today. So this is just a reminder about not calling people on the do not call registry and to be compliant with the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. There's links and resources for that, but this is just another reminder, don't call. Could be a big headache. Lots of lawsuits happen every day because real estate agents or telemarketers, they call people who don't want to be called. So don't be one of those people. Never leave pre-recorded messages on the auto dialers. So just disclaimer right there. So this is going to be our timeline for hosting an open house. And especially when you're getting started, you might think, hey, I'm going to do an open house over the weekend. I just need to sign up by Friday and then I'm good to go. Just stand there, have a couple of flyers printed out. Now, that isn't a successful mindset to have the best open house possible. Really, you want to be having about a week to prepare for the open house. So on Monday, what you should be doing is you should identify what open house you want to host. On Tuesday, you're going to want to start your prospecting for hosting the open house. What that means is a combination of getting a list from your title rep. There's lots of applications. We can go over that a little bit more in detail. And just either door knocking or calling those leads and inviting people to the open house. On Wednesday, you want to start making social media posts for your sphere of influence. Let them know that you're hosting the open house in case they have anybody else. On Thursday, you want to start running ads for the open house. Friday, you want to start, again, going back over and door knocking some more. And then Saturday, this one, they have the open house scheduled for Sunday. Usually we do open houses 2 days, so Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes it might be broken up a little bit differently, but that's when you want to have everything prepared and ready to go. Are there any questions so far?
Nope.
Okay, then we will continue. So prepare for success, guys. McDonald's, a lot of us think of McDonald's as a burger company, right? McDonald's is actually the most famous real estate company. They go around and they do their market research before they open up any branch, and they make sure that it has the right demographic, the right traffic. They do hours and hours and hours of market research for where they're going to open up the new locations. When you're picking an open house to host, you need to do the exact same thing. Now, right now we have limited inventory, so it's going to be a little bit harder to host an open house, especially with how quickly things are moving. But if you have the ability to choose your house that you're going to host, you want to make sure that you're choosing it so you have the right clientele that you're marketing towards, right? So what that looks like is you want a single family home rather than a condo. You want it to be in a price point that you're comfortable, because these are going to be the clients who are looking at the open house will be the clients that you want to attract, right? So if you can work on an open house for a condo that's selling at 800,000, or you can work at an open house that's listed at 1.7, you know, personally, I'd rather go to the 1.7 one because I like some $1.7 million clients more than a $800,000 client, right? You want to make sure that you're preparing for success. You also want to look at the different traffic patterns when school gets out, if there's anything that happens with an ebb and flow for traffic, so you understand what your area is going to be like. This is important because if you're hosting the open house and you've been having steady traffic and then it suddenly stops, it could be lots of reasons. Like it could be that school just got out and that's blocking the traffic, or it could be, and this happened to me just 2 weeks ago, another agent has turned your signs around and you need to drive around to get everything situated. Yeah, so you always want to make sure that you understand what the market's like before you host the open house, and that you have a good idea of the local practices as well. As far as local practices, different cities have different ordinances, and I'll provide a link in the chat in just a bit for how many signs you can put up, and that's really important to understand, because if you don't listen to the ordinances, they'll come by and they'll just pick up the signs sometimes and throw them away. So you want to make sure that before you put out your signs for the open houses, you check with the city's ordinances, because the signs are not cheap. And you know, it really sucks if they come by and they just pick up 5 signs and just throw them away. So make sure that you are compliant with that. And I'll provide a link for both Santa Clara County and then also San Mateo County. They have different links for the different ordinances for open house signs, and just make sure that you're compliant with the local practices. Any questions? I'll take the time while you guys think to add in the links. So yeah, so these ones right here, they're going to provide the links for the local ordinances. We can go on to talking a little bit more about prospecting. So before you get the open house, you really want to make sure that you're taking the time to prospect very thoroughly. Ignite recommends at least door knocking on 25 doors. What I find is that you want to do at least 100 doors before an open house of the neighbors. When it's a conversion rate for cold calls or cold door knocking, it's the % conversion rate. So you want to set yourself up for success and to make the most time that you can. Same thing for calling. You want to call about 100 numbers, and you know you have a good list or a bad list for calling if you get about a 12% answer rate. For cold calling, again, it's going to be about a 1% conversion rate. So you really want to make sure that you're going through and you're making sure to contact everybody. And if you do that successfully, not only do you have the opportunity of getting more leads and closing more deals from the open house, but you're also going to increase the exposure for the open house, which is going to help you boost up the price. When you do the conversion and the door knocking, there's a couple scripts that we can go through. In fact, we can do some role play right now for 5 minutes. So does anybody want to do a script with me? They can be either the buyer or the seller, or not buyer or the seller, agent or the seller that I'm randomly door knocking on. Any volunteers?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, which would you prefer, being the agent or the consumer?
Consumer.
Consumer, fantastic. So we'll get started, and I believe this script should be in your Ignite toolbox kit as well, and there should be some more on page 25, but we'll get started with this one. So when you're doing door knocking, just to preface this a little bit, you're going to be hitting a lot of doors, so you don't want to spend too much time there. You want to keep it quick, just information, value driven, introduction, and then you have to go to the next door, right? Because it can take about 2 to 3 hours to do knocking on 100 doors if you're having the conversations properly. So you want to make sure that it's, hi, nice to meet you, on to the next. So we'll go ahead and do a role play of this one. I'll be the agent knocking. Knock, knock, knock.
Hello.
Hey there, my name's Nick Rowe. I'm a local realtor. I'm just walking the neighborhood because actually your neighbor has an open house coming up this Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. And they asked me to just go around and invite you and see if you had anybody who might want to come by, maybe work, some family members who are moving a little closer to home. So yeah, just feel free to stop by. At this point, I hand the flyer over.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and while I have you here, just because I'm trying to learn the neighborhood a little bit better, I was just wondering what the pros and cons are from an insider about living here.
Well, it's a very quiet neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of noise. There's a lot of traffic.
There's a lot of traffic?
Yeah, afternoon.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it, I think.
Yeah, so I like it quiet, a little bit of traffic, but a nice little sort of tucked away from the hustle and bustle of the city. Fantastic. Just curious, if you ever considered moving, where would you go?
In Palo Alto.
Palo Alto. And what's so important about Palo Alto? Why there?
I like the what's the area where the hospital is? That area. Forgot
No,
the
it's
name.
it's Beautiful over in Palo Alto.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans to maybe move there in the next couple of years? I mean, it sounds like you've thought about it a little bit.
Yeah, maybe a couple years.
Yeah. Well, you know what? For this transaction, I think it's going to go a lot more for what they listed it for. Do you mind if I stay in contact with you and just keep you updated on the price?
Sure.
Fantastic. It's the contact information. And depending on what it goes for, maybe we could take a look at what it would mean to sell your current place and get you one in Palo Alto.
Okay. Yeah, sounds interesting.
Yeah, I'll keep in touch. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're all learning. There's always room to improve. For me, what I probably could have done there is I probably could have pushed a little bit more for an appointment because it sounded like there's a little bit more interest. But the contact information is good. You want to make sure that you have the contact information, then you follow up. Something that we don't really do as agents enough is follow up. In the first 6 days, if you have a lead, you need to make a call every single day. So you can have text messages going, you can have emails going, but to actually convert, you need to have at least 6 phone calls every day or until they pick up, right? And the reason for that is, some people might say, hey, Nick, we're in Silicon Valley, right? There's a lot of programmers out here. They're busy. They don't like taking my phone calls. But this is a way that we can actually qualify the leads on how serious they are. If we have a serious buyer or seller and they won't pick up the phone for us, do you think if we're in the middle of the transaction, they're going to listen to us? Or are they even motivated to sell or to buy right now? It's sort of a way that we can test to see how committed they are if they're willing to get on the phone with us. Also for setting appointments, and I probably should have pushed for an appointment there. If I was really door knocking right now, I'd probably be kicking myself on the way to the next door. But for setting appointments, you don't want to do a long distance appointment. You always want to close when you're going to follow up with them next. And data's proven. I just took this really great, I think it was a team building seminar yesterday for Keller Williams. And they had all these statistics out there. And the first 48 hours are the most important to have an appointment. So whenever you're doing lead generation, you should have the next 48 hours, you should have an opening for your next appointment. I believe it drops from a 70% success rate to a 20% if it's over 48 hours. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind for when you're doing door knocking, or even when you're hosting the open house. You want to have that time already time blocked for those appointments, because you really want to get in there before somebody else comes through. Because what happens is people get excited about real estate. And when you get excited about real estate, you start talking about real estate. The problem is most people know more than just one realtor, and you've only had one interaction with them, right? Let's say that their best friend's brother is also a real estate agent. Now you're competing with him, and you're competing with their cousin who just got their license as well, right? So the longer that you don't lock it in, the more chance that there's going to be competition, and there's going to be competition that they might trust a little bit more than you, because you've only made that connection just once. Okay, do you guys want to do some script practice amongst yourself? Can we do break rooms, Jackie? She's still here. I do not know. Huh. Well, we will, in that case, we can do some practice. We hold weekly script practice on Wednesdays in the morning. And if we don't get to the script practice right now, I mean, this is usually our time that we actually do the script practice. I believe it's from 9 to 11. We do script practice and also calling and lead generation. So feel free to come then. We can work on some of these scripts in next script practice time. Okay. So next, we're going to take a look at spreading the word through social ad campaigns. And when you say campaigns and, Facebook marketing, a lot of people get really confused with that, especially if you don't have a lot of experience with running Facebook ads. Luckily for us, we have campaigns in Command, and it makes it really simple. With just a few clicks, you can just click through the process, and then you're already running Facebook ads. And, a lot of people ask me, so Nick, what's the difference between running a Facebook ad through Facebook and running it through Command? And Command will actually give us a cheaper rate than if we go through Facebook directly, because Keller Williams has partnered with Facebook for that purpose, to help the agents reduce on costs. So I always recommend going through Commands, especially if you don't know 100% what you're doing with Facebook ads already. Like, there's some people out there who have been doing marketing on Facebook for years and years, and they say, oh, if I do it through Command, I don't have this option or that option, or I can't add this custom audience that I've built for this. And if you're at that level, you might decide that you want to go through Facebook directly. But for a lot of us agents who are just starting with social media, digital marketing, we really want to just start with Command and just go from there. And we can take a quick look at what that would look like too, if you guys would like. Or do you guys, are you familiar and you want to go on to the next step for postcards and things like that?
Sorry, so you're going to show us on Command?
Yeah, I could show you guys on Command quickly just what it looks like for a campaign.
Okay.
Okay. Give me a second to log on. Okay, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so This is the command portal that you guys should all be familiar with. These are my tasks that I probably should have completed, but I did not complete yet. So if you go over to the left-hand side and you go down to this little megaphone here, it's called campaigns. You just go ahead and you click on that and it brings you to the campaign portal. Now from here, it's super easy to create a campaign. Right at the top here, you can just click on create a campaign, and then it brings you a whole bunch of different options. You have social, paid ad. You can do Google search ads. So that's for like Google AdWords for those who are familiar. You can just actually make direct social posts that don't cost money for your sphere of influence. You can do direct mail ads. So that's going to be like postcards, and then you can do email campaigns. So we're going to take just a quick look at social. I'm just going to call this test, and we'll do advertise listing, Facebook and Instagram. I never use Twitter for marketing. That's just my personal preference. And if you guys have any more questions about this more in depth, you can always go to, I believe it's kw.answers or .com/answers. I'll provide a link in just a moment. But they have a lot of tutorials on this. Also the 60-day challenge on Facebook ads on YouTube is really good, and I can provide a link for that too later on. So here you just go and you would add your listing that you're holding the open house for. You'd get your main copy. So this is going to be the text that would be displayed. You have your headline text, you have a description that's going to be below, and then you would just add a video or a picture. And for Facebook ads, guys, I just want to do another quick legal disclaimer. Make sure that you have all the information required by California law. So you want to have the broker, you want to have the broker's logo, your DRE number, contact information. You want to make sure that you're compliant with all of that with anything that you post on social media. Anytime that it's going to be a first contact with a new lead, you want to make sure that you're providing that information. Good rule of thumb is just look at your business card and make sure that you have the information that's on your business card in your social post. So then we get down to, this is the important part, the most important part after you have your media set in, and it's going to be your landing page, which you can either have a website that you already have created, or you can have one that you create through command. You can also do a lead generation form, which is what I would probably recommend for beginners. It looks like it is. Okay. So it's not working right now for me. It wants me to do something on Facebook. Let's see here. But when you do a lead generation form, what it sets up is it lets you have a form where you collect their contact information before they even go to your landing page. So you could have a landing page that could just be the your website and the listing. And then before they can go and see the information about the listing, they have to type in their information, like their email, phone number, name, and that auto-populates then in command, so you can follow up as soon as you get that lead. So I always recommend doing the Facebook lead generation. Oh, there we go. So it's working now. So if they click on the Learn More button, gives them the lead, then they get sent to the landing page, and then that is pretty much that. You can also change the audience settings a bit. And again, this is getting more into the in-depth stuff. So you could just do a simple location base. So if it's in San Jose, you can say, okay, within 20 miles of San Jose, it's going to show to anybody there. Or you can add interests that people have, like, you know, maybe they're interested in Zillow, boom, it will send an ad to them. Or they're interested in Redfin, interested in realtor.com. You can add custom interests, and then it will target those people. And that's pretty much how you set up a simple social ad campaign. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Let me just open this back up. Okay, so that's how you do the social ad campaigns. Also, if that seems like it's a little bit too much for you to get started with, just post about it on social media, especially when you guys are getting started. Your sphere of influence is really where a lot of the business is going to be coming from. So posting on your personal page, just so they can see that you're doing open houses. It also adds another factor that, our friends and family don't necessarily know what we're doing. If we look busy, we are busy, right? It's about that whole perception is everything. You want to look like you're working all the time. So if you can make it look like that by saying, oh, I'm hosting this open house on Saturday, come by if you want to, even if they're not interested in your area, then if you're staying top of mind, right? Because for realtors, it's only about 2 realtors are going to be top of mind for everybody. So if you're staying top of mind, if they have a question about real estate, there's a good chance that you might pop up and be one of their first go-tos. Okay, so now we're going to talk about promoting the open house and hosting it. In actuality, this is what we have been building up towards. So you've gone around, you've done your door knocking, you've done your calls, you're ready to go. The day of, you've put up your signs in good locations. What that means is lots of traffic, easy to understand, and you're ready to host. So you want to show up to the open house, I'd say probably at a minimum of 30 minutes before. And the reason for this is you never know what the condition of the house is going to be. So you want to make sure that you have some stuff to get it prepared. And we can go over a little bit more in depth later on what you should have in your open house kit. But when you get there, you want to make sure that you set up your signs, like I said, in good locations with lots of cross traffic, so you get the most eyes possible, and then you head back to the house. Before you do anything in retail, there's this thing called 4 corners, 4 walls. So I used to work in retail. I was a manager, sales associate, and every day when we get to the shop, we'd open up and we'd start by going every step of the parking lot, making sure that there was no trash, it looked presentable. And then we'd move on to the inside of the store and we do the same thing. And the reason for this is first impressions are everything, right? When you're hosting an open house, it's not just the house that you're promoting yourself. If somebody shows up and they see a whole bunch of leaves and garbage, right in front of the street, that's going to look badly for the house and it's going to look badly for you. So you want to make sure that the open house reflects how you are as an agent. So before you do anything, you want to make sure 4 corners, 4 walls. When you start hosting the open house, another thing too is people are going to start coming inside. You never want to be sitting down when you're hosting the open house. It doesn't look good. I mean, it's not too fun to be standing for 4 hours, but it's all about image, right? If somebody comes in, they're just sitting down and looking at their phone, I don't think I would hire them as an agent if they're doing that. Just it gives me a bad, vibe, bad feeling. I want to see somebody who's professional, ready to go, and always on. When you go in, you definitely want to be building rapport with the leads. So that means, introducing them to the house. You should have a script memorized for the house and be ready to go to introduce them to the property. Like you should have the beds, baths, square footage, flooring. You should have basic facts memorized that you don't have to look at a sheet of paper. So you become a wealth of information for the property for them. If they come in and you're looking at your MLS printout sheet and you're like, oh, this has 1,132 square feet. And then you look back at them, you've already lost them, right? You want to go in there and you want to be like, welcome to 123 Main Street. It's a beautiful house. Everything was recently redone in the kitchen. We have a professional stove, custom granite countertop. Square footage for the building is going to be 1,123 square feet. We're going to have 6,432 square feet for the lot. You want to make sure that all of that is smooth and ready to go. Practice it a few times in the mirror before you do the open house, because you really want to make sure that their first impression of both you and the house is professional and perfect. That's what's going to convert them into trusting you. Then after you do your little script, what I like to do is I tell them, I'm going to be right here if you need me. I don't want to, crowd you or anything. So go ahead and take a look at the house, because another thing is they just met you, right? So you're not their agent yet. You're not going to be their agent if you're following them around and breathing down their neck the whole time, right? People don't want to feel like they're being watched. They want to enjoy the house. So go ahead, give them some space, let them enjoy the house, and then follow back up with them in a bit. But you don't want to be, stalking them from room to room. It's not good form. You also want to make sure that you're asking good qualifying questions. So you want to ask them, like questions like, oh, are you familiar with the neighborhood? are you in the market? How long have you been in the market for? That's a good one, because that will give you an idea of how motivated they are, right? If somebody's like, oh, we're just looking around, we haven't really decided to get into the market yet, we just wanted to see the neighborhood, that might be a little bit further off versus the person who comes in, they've said, I've been looking for a year. I just fired my last realtor because he didn't tell me that this. That actually happened to me on the last open house. We had a client who came in who'd been working for a year with the realtor. The realtor had been doing some shady stuff. They fired him and they were going to the open house before. Extremely motivated and they were ready to go, right? These qualifying questions are going to help you put them into different categories. 1, neighbors, which could be potential listing leads. 2, buyers that aren't that motivated. 3, buyers that are extremely motivated. And 4, buyers that have agents who are happy with their agents. And based off of realtor code of ethics, we leave them alone, right? Now, if you ask a client, do you have an agent? And it's a yes or no question. A lot of times, especially if you haven't built that rapport with them, they're just going to say yes, even if the answer is no. It's better to try to ask a open-ended question, something like, oh, and which agent are you working with, right? Because if they don't have it already up here, which agent they're working with, if you put them on a spot with a question like that, a lot of times you'll get oh, actually, I'm not working with an agent, right? Another thing you want to do is you want to always be providing value. So a way that you can do that is if they're first-time home buyers and you get that through the pre-qualified question, it's like, oh, have you bought a home before? They say no. You can offer to set up a buyer consultation for them to walk them through the home buying process. Now, this does 2 things. 1, it provides value for them because you can explain what the market and the process of buying a home is like. And for us, we live and breathe real estate, so we're very familiar with what the process is like. But for first-time home buyers, they have absolutely no idea what's going on. They look on Zillow, they look on Redfin, and they go into the process and they get overwhelmed. So just taking a time to slow everything down and really spell it out for them in a buyer consultation helps them understand what they're getting into, and it avoids misunderstandings in the future. So really just try to do a proposition and come from value. We should always be coming from value. Now, if you set up you always want to close the appointment the day of, right? So if you're talking to them at the open house, remember how I said earlier, you have that 48-hour window to have the appointment scheduled. You want to fill those slots during the open house, because if they walk out of the house and you don't have them on the face-to-face, your chances of closing that initial appointment drop down again to probably around 30% or so, right? If they say, oh, I'll call you, or I have your card, you can put them on a drip campaign, but odds are you're not going to hear from them again. So you want to make sure that they commit to something and that you touch them when they're committing to something until the day of the actual appointment, especially if you can't hit that 48-hour period. Another thing that you might consider doing, I know several top producers, they have sort of a VIP section of value that they add. And what that could look like is it could be, we're not able to show them houses because we're doing the open house. But if you have a really good connection with a buyer, you might consider having, like a folder prepared that has other open houses in the area with information about them, and say, you can take them aside for a second. You can have the folder and say, I really want to work with you. I'm doing the open house right now, but these are some other properties that, based off of your interest in this one, I believe you would also enjoy seeing. Here's the list for them. These are the times for the open houses. These are the price points. Let's discuss later today if you liked any of those ones as well, right? Also, if they're coming in and they don't have an agent and they're a little bit hesitant to have an agent, remember, guys, we have access to things. Not only do we have access to showing them more properties, which is another piece of value that we can proposition, but we have access to the disclosures, right? We have disclosure.io most times. We can, leverage that as something that we can provide value to them. We can say, hey, do you want to look at the disclosures? Let's set up a time to look over the disclosures for this house. And if you do all of that, you're going to get a lot more value for the clients and a lot more connections and leads based off of that. Another thing that you can do, let me see if I want to go over this here a little bit later. Yeah, we can go over it here. Another thing that we use often is a service called List Reports. And I'll put a link in the chat. And list reports is fantastic. What it basically does is you can draw in flyers and information about the schools, the area, the restaurant, things to do, nightlife, stuff like that. And what we do is we just print them all out, and then we spread out a sheets on the kitchen table or something. And then we call it our market snapshot. So then when people are coming through, we say, oh, are you familiar with the area? No? Well, don't worry, we have you covered. Take a look at our market snapshot. They go over there, they take a look, they understand the area, and then we can start having conversations based off of that as well. Like, oh, are good schools important to you? We have these rating, this rating, this rating. You know, you always want to provide value as much as you can. Any questions? Okay. I'll take that as something that we can do to move on. So the most important thing for lead generation is the follow-up, and the follow-up comes when you capture the lead, right? The gold is in the follow-up. So there's lots of different ways that you can capture the leads. You can have written sheets that you can do. Now, a lot of times when they fill out the sheets, they might not give you the best information. And if their handwriting's messy like mine is, it can be pretty hard to decipher what the email is or the phone number. You can also do digital ones where they type the information out there. I think there's even services that you can do where they just text a number and then it gives them the form and then you have their information. So lead capture is really important. Again, a lot of times people are going to be hesitant to give you the information because they don't want to be constantly bombarded with text message campaigns or emails or junk mail. So there's going to be a little bit of pushback. Now, back a few months ago, we were pretty lucky because there's the PSI form that was required for open houses that basically made everybody sign in with their contact information, signature and full name saying that they didn't have COVID. Now, I don't think that CAR, they lifted the regulation with that, so we don't have to do the form anymore. But I know some agents still have the forms there and they just say, oh, the seller's requested for COVID safety. It's a good line that you can do. Even if you're not using the PSI form, it's just saying, oh, the seller wants to know everybody who comes through here, just in case there's a potential outbreak that we'd be able to reach everybody and, you know, inform everybody just for safety practices, right? So you got to look at the positive side. I mean, COVID's horrible, pandemic's horrible, but, you know, it might make it a little bit easier to get some lead capture. So we got to take the good with the bad, right? So it's really important. You want to get the phone number, email, and name, and you want to make sure that you get that for every single person. A good trick that I learned actually when I used to work in the hotel industry is if you highlight the areas that you need and you point to it first, people are going to be more inclined to fill it out than if you just leave it unhighlighted and it's just black and white. Just a little trick I picked up along the way. You can also create a neighborhood landing page. Again, this is through command, and we can go over this a little bit more in depth if you guys would like with how to create landing pages. And, you know, when you do the neighborhood landing page, it's the same thing with the consumer landing page. You get the information and then you have it in your command already, so you don't have to upload it, which is nice, because if you get it just on the paper, you're going to spend the next night, you know, typing everything up and translating it into digital. Any questions so far?
No, but I would like to see that, how to create the landing page.
Yeah, we can do that quickly.
Also, Nick, where do you get the sign-in sheet from, the one that was on the previous slide?
So that one, I think, is there should be templates in Ignite for that one, I believe it said. Also, the one that I was using before was the PSI one from CAR, which was just the COVID one. But yeah, it's pretty much, you can create it there. There's also templates. The most important thing is just that you have the property address, you have the information. I know a lot of agents actually just prefer doing it digital. That way they don't have to translate it. So they just get something for their iPad, or they do something like this landing page here, because then you don't have to do that. The worst thing is when you've had a super busy open house and you have 100 leads to convert and you're super tired and you get back at like, you know, 7 p.m. and you're going through all of the leads and you know you have to contact them that night, and then 90% of them you can't read the emails and you're just sending out the emails anyways. So it really is, it's really nice if you can have it digital. But right now with you know, safety reasons, people don't really feel comfortable typing in information on a used surface like an iPad. So I find that the form works a little bit better for retention rate. But yeah, there should be a template for that in your Ignite tools. So here we are on command again. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Fantastic. And we are going to go down to consumer, which is, let me see, down at the bottom. And this is the same section that you use to set up your website when you set it up your website. And you click over to the tab up top for landing pages. And we can actually take a look at this one that I created as well. This one was when we had it coming soon for one of our listings. We pulled a video for it. We had a market snapshot down here. And then we had our lead generation form.
Hey guys, and welcome to our newest listing. We have a sneak peek for you. It's a 3-bed.
This one was actually a pretty good open house. We had over
Move and
50
ready.
parties
All you
come
have
through.
to do is pack your bags and turn the key. Let's take a look.
And the video too, it takes like 5 minutes to shoot a video like this and to edit it. So it's, you know, you don't always have to go with like the professional photography. Like we did do professional photography for this one, but if you want to just do a quick social media post, they're not expecting it to be, you know, we're not Marvel movies, right? We're realtors. So what's important is that they can just see the property and it looks good and give them a little something. So that one was pretty good. But if you want to create a page, you're in the landing page section. You click create a new page. As a landing page, create. And then it brings you to the website building portal. So up top, you can drag your agent branding. That's actually going to be on the bottom. Lead form. This is what you're going to use to capture the leads. And then you can do something like a market snapshot here. So we have all of that. And then you need to configure the widgets because we don't want to have the market snapshot be for just any area. So you can do it by zip code. Or you can go more in depth and do the actual neighborhood that you're in. Let's see, so this one is for Belmont. And then it would look pretty much like this if they clicked on the page. And then just save and apply. And then when you click publish page, you'd have a landing page. Any questions about that?
No,
Fantastic.
thanks.
Yeah, of course. Give it a second to load back up.
So I have a question about that actually. So
So-
once you've created the landing page, would you
Mhm.
then create a QR code and then just print that out in your open house? Is that the way that they'd sign in then?
Yeah, so, you know, QR codes are fantastic. I think QR codes are really utilized right now. They got a lot more popular. But yeah, so you could do the QR code is probably the fastest. You might have to explain QR codes to a few of the people who come through, especially if you have some older guests. But yeah, that would probably be the best way, I think, is just you can go through there. I think you can do QR codes through command, but if you can't, you can definitely do it through like a site like Canva or something where you just copy the URL and then put it into a QR code.
Thank you.
Let's see. Okay, so another thing, guys, is you definitely want to be conscious of safety. So when you're door knocking, you want to have the best safety practices, right? So that could mean going in a team rather than going alone, making sure that you have people who know where you are at all times. When you're doing that, establishing an escape route, you know, make sure that your phone is completely charged, park on the street. Just because we're going to people who we don't know, we want to make sure that we're conscious there are situations that can arise that could be dangerous. So we want to prevent that from happening. Also, if you're hosting an open house, you want to make sure that you have an escape route planned in case there is something that can happen. We don't know who's coming through the doors. Actually, just at the last open house that we hosted, there's this one gentleman who completely fine at first, and then he was going through some stuff in his life, ended up having a pretty explosive outburst breakdown in front of us. And because we were with the team, it was okay. We were able to handle it. But you never know what's going to happen. Remember, these are strangers. We don't control the situation. So always make sure that you have other people who know where you are. If you can host an open house with somebody else, and we'll go over that a little bit more, I'd recommend it. If you have a team or if you're a newer agent, if you can ask to co-host, because you really want to be conscious of your safety, right? Okay. So the gold is in the follow-up. We always want to be doing the follow-up. This is going to go a large part into the different leads that we collect. When you get a lead from an open house, you want to categorize it as either a A+ lead or a B lead, or you can have a couple more variations in there, but that's going to depend on their timeline and how motivated they are, right? If they're an immediate buyer or an immediate seller, you want to focus on just getting them locked into place. If they're a few years out, or maybe they're not as serious, you want to make sure that you have the drip campaign set up either through email, maybe it's adding them through a portal like HomeBot that sends them updates every month or so about their home value. You want to make sure that you catch the leads that aren't immediate as well, because it's going to grow into leads in the future. My teammate actually had a lead that they worked on a drip campaign for 7 years, and then they got a call, listing appointment. They're like, "Oh, do you have any questions?" And they're like, "No, I've been receiving your material for 7 years. I'm ready to sign." So you want to make sure that you have your drip campaigns in place for the longer term leads, and you want to make sure that you also have the follow-up needed for the more immediate leads so you can lock them in. Any questions about that? Okay, then moving on. So best practices. I touched a little bit about this earlier, but when you're going to host an open house, whether it's your open house or if somebody else's open house, you need to know all the material. So that means you need to have the disclosures downloaded. You need to have gone through them. You need to have the basic information memorized like the back of your hand. Again, it's all about images. It's all about what you prepare and how prepared are you, and it's going to translate into your confidence, right? A lot of us, when we start talking to people, if we don't have all the information out, they're going to be able to hear that in our voice, right? If you're like, "Oh, it's something, or the worst thing you can do is say, "Oh, let me check with the listing agent," right? I mean, if it's a question that you don't know, obviously, it's better to check with the listing agent than to come up with some information that isn't factual. But you want to have enough information that you have already discussed with the listing agent and have already gotten down in your script that you are an expert on that house. When they talk to you, they're not talking to you because they want to be your friend. They're talking to you because they think you're an expert on the house, and you, You should be, right? So you want to have all the disclosures read. You want to have the basic facts memorized. You want to have information about the HOA memorized. You want to have what the HOA covers memorized. You want to know about the roof age. You want to know about the furnace age. You want to know about any remodels that they did. Just you really want to make sure that you know the house as well as the listing agent. What I like to do as a good rule of thumb is every time you host an open house, pretend you're the listing agent for that week, right? Pretend that it's your listing if it's not your listing. And if it is your listing, then you definitely should have all of this down. Okay, so another thing with best practices too is, again, we want to come from value. So what's another way we can bring value? I mean, we're awesome because we're real estate agents, but for the clients, there's other professionals that they might be interested in hearing from. So a good way to do an open house and to make it really successful is to host a speaker. Now, what that can look like is that can look like getting your loan officer, like we have Carl Chen, who hosts open houses with us. And that way, if a buyer's coming through and they have a question about, the financials or how they would qualify for the house and what that would look like, we can just send them over there and he can explain the process to them. Another thing you could look at is maybe getting a contractor, especially if the house is in need of some repairs. So they can say, oh yeah, would be the process for this. This would be the process for permits. It would be about this much, just so you have that extra value to give them, to give the house in really a tip-top shape. Also, you might consider doing something like offer a gift or a raffle, especially if it's for the neighbors. If you want the neighbors to come and see how you operate, you might pass out something like, oh, we're doing a raffle at the open house. They come in, and if your presentation is spotless, if you're thinking about selling, you're going to get a lot more people through the door. Also, again, you want to get the house in showing shape. So you never know what the house is going to look like when you get there, especially if it's been on the market for a while. There could be cobwebs, spider webs, debris outside. You want to make sure that you show up pretty much like a cleaning crew yourself with paper towel, Windex, disinfectant wipes, the whole thing, right? You want to go in there and you want to make it spotless because, if the house shines, you shine, right? The house is the MVP. We're just there to make it look good. And then, when you're live, you want to make sure that you're, again, always on with high energy. It can get a little bit rough when it's, the 4-hour stretches, right? You might have a bunch of energy on the first hour and a bunch of energy on the last hour, but you don't want to be watching the clock on the third hour, right? It happens, but be conscious of it and try to make intentional that you're staying high energy for everybody who goes through the door. It can be exhausting, but you never know which person is going to be your next client and which person might even buy the house. So this is some do's and don'ts. Welcome visitors at the door. Definitely don't be sitting down. Again, it's all about first impressions. Get the house in showing shape. We went over that. Think safety first. So that's with the things like escape routes. Also make sure that there's no valuables left out, because again, we're having strangers come through the house, especially if it's still owner occupied and it's not staged. You want to be conscious of their valuable possessions, that they're not getting picked up by anybody. Don't have messy meals. So oftentimes at open houses, it's nice to have some snacks for the clients to go through, but you want to be, strategic with what snacks you're offering, because if you're offering something that's going to make the house messy and they're going through the house and then it's super messy, that's just going to be a nightmare, because it doesn't make the house look good and then it makes you look unprofessional as well. Also, don't make assumptions. There's a guy coming in an Armani suit and a guy coming in the hoodie, especially in, Silicon Valley in the Bay Area. Both of them might be millionaires. We don't know. You don't know what their financial situation is. You don't know if they're going to purchase the house or not. Don't be like, oh, they're just here to look at the house and give them a different level of service. Everybody who comes through the doors needs to receive the utmost service all the time, all the time. Any questions? Okay, we will keep moving on. So you should have an open house kit. And the reason for this is, especially if you're doing this every week, you need to have a to-go bag for your open house. And it needs to have things like disinfectant wipes. That's more important now than ever. Toilet paper, paper towels. Spills happen and you need to think quick. You need to have pens for the sign-in sheets. You need to have air fresheners. I mean, especially if you have toilet paper and the open house isn't, unless the toilets are taped down, people sometimes need to use the restroom. And, sometimes that leaves odors that need to be eliminated, or your open house isn't going to be doing too well. Also, it's important to have extra business cards because you want to be handing the business cards out to, when you greet the people at the door, you're like, here's my card, especially if they don't have the agent. A good line I like to use is they say, oh, do you have an agent? They say, no, I'm giving my card. I'm like, well, now you do. It's a fun little way that you can do it. And you want to make sure that you're handing out your information to as many people as possible, because again, it's all about exposure. They might not be thinking about selling. Maybe they have a friend who's thinking about selling and they have your card, right? So cards aren't too expensive. It's a quick way to just hand it out to people. Also, you want to make sure that you have a charger for your phone, especially if you're doing something like playing music, right? If you're playing music on your phone, you have your speakers going, and then halfway through the open house, it just dies. And there's a whole bunch of clients inside the open house when it dies. They get out pretty quickly because, it goes from having a good time to crickets. Measuring tape. Nowadays, actually on iPhones, you can use your iPhone as a pretty, it has an app called Measure, and you take 2 pictures and it uses augmented reality to come up with the measurements. And it's pretty accurate, but it's not as good as a regular measuring tape. But, they might come through and have questions about, can my bed fit here? What's the size of this room? Would this work here? So you want to make sure that you can have answers to all of that. Trash bags, obviously, and then tissues. I know now we're all wearing masks, but it's good to have some tissues. Okay, going back to the follow-up. So does anybody know what this is? So this is our lead generation sales funnel. And the key part about it is, let me step over here so you guys can see a little bit better. The key part about it is the section here. When you go to the bottom of it, it repeats, right? Because the real thing with lead generation is the money's in the follow-up, right? If you go through all the steps and they haven't converted yet, you just put them back into the top of the funnel and you go again. Again, I'm reminded of the story from my teammate, 7 years on a drip campaign, right? You never know when the leads are going to be ready, but if you keep them in the drip campaigns, you always have an opportunity to representing them. If you take them out of the campaign and you don't, contact them anymore and just delete them, that opportunity is gone. So if you get the contact, and we work so hard for the contacts, we pay the title companies, what was it, like 35 cents per phone number or something. If you have a contact that's a good contact and you've had a good relationship with, make sure that you hold on to it. And then again, with what I said before with the statistics, first 6 days, you want to make sure that you call 6 times. That's the magic number. You want to be emailing, texting, but 6 calls in the first 6 days or until they pick up. Okay, recap and create a success list. So, given what you guys have learned today, what do you think your strengths will be when it comes to open houses? And this is open mic. Anybody feel free to jump in. This one's going to be a one where I'm going to hold you guys to it. So I really want to see some active participation, guys. We're just recapping the whole session that we learned today. Let's take some things that we learned from it. And you can type some stuff in the chat too if you don't feel comfortable with using the mic, or if you can't, but I really want to see some participation.
I'll do my part to do my homework and prepare a week in advance to the open house. And yes, basically do all the skills that you just taught us to do now, either creating a sign-in sheet through PSI from CAR, or create a landing page the way that you had taught us to.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Another thing I want to leave you guys with, just thinking about that, is the other day when I was at the conference, the Zoom conference, we're competing with teams that have dedicated agents which are just used for lead generation. Now, most of us are solo agents and we're not on teams. But these dedicated agents for lead generation, they're working 8 hours a day. And in those 6 hours of, heavy duty work, they're adding 6 contacts a day. So that's a minimum of 36 contacts a day. Most of them are doing more like 50 contacts a day. Now, when we're solo agents, a lot of times we work on a lot of the stuff that doesn't lead to direct lead generation and conversion of leads, right? There's a lot of bookkeeping, a lot of little things that we find ourselves caught up on. But we have to think of ourselves as we have to wear many hats, right? One hat that we have to wear is we have to be the business owner. Another is we have to be the employee. So I think a good thing for the open house is we need to do all of the things that I mentioned, but we also need to think every day you should look yourself in the mirror and you should say, do I deserve a raise today? Am I meeting and exceeding my expectations as far as lead generation, as far as hosting the open houses, as far as getting contacts and converting? Do I deserve a raise today? And every day the answer should be yes, right? Because if we were working for somebody else, we'd be held accountable. But a lot of times when we're working for ourselves, it's really hard to get that accountability for, oh, okay, I'm going to do actually 100, door knocks today, or I'm going to call 100 people, or I'm going to, do the social media posts and do this. A lot of times it gets pushed to, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I want to do it, but I'll do it tomorrow. I want to do it, but I'll do it tomorrow. But if we think like that, do we deserve a raise? Anyone else?
Hi, my name's Pearl. I would, when I did open houses, or when I do open houses, I know how many square feet and the whole thing, but I never thought to look at the disclosures and have some of that information off the top. I'm going to do that also. Thank you for that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I used to start off just like you with doing just the MLS is what I'd look at instead of the disclosures. But then what I found is when I was actually working with potential buyers who wanted to buy the house, they would have questions about the disclosure. So they would look around at something, they'd see a crack on the wall and they'd be like, oh, does that mean the foundation's bad or something? There's a lot of things that could go wrong very quickly if I didn't have the reports. You don't have to have the reports completely memorized, but I think it really does add so much value that you become an expert where you can say, oh, this report for this, or termites, $5,000, but this, or they already fixed this. Just it makes you, it takes you to the next level. So I'm glad you're able to take that away today.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else, or should we close up? Okay, let's go to the next page then. So again, this is with the AHA achievement moments, which is pretty much what we were doing on the last page there. So I think we're going to close off with just going over our daily success habits. 10 contacts added each day, 10 conversations, 10 written notes, and then 10 home previews a week. That's going to help you get started to get your career caught on fire. That's why we're doing Ignite. And, again, I'm just going to go back to the accountability. A lot of times, me included, I'll be in these Ignite presentations and I'll see the 10 contacts added and I'll be like, yeah. And then I'll get to the phone and I'll look at my phone and I'll say, maybe after lunch. And then I'll push it back and I'll say, maybe during dinner, and it just never happens. So I really want you guys, if one thing we get from the open houses today is just be intentional with how you do everything in the business, whether it be open houses, whether it's the lead generation. I mean, I think open houses is probably a big part of lead generation because it gives you a reason to call, because you can call for the open house to invite people. You can knock on the doors with a reason. It's not just, oh, I'm just here knocking on doors. You have purpose. It gets your foot in the door, right? So I really want you guys to use open house sort of as a catalyst for all your other lead generation. And then there's going to be some scripts in the packet, I believe around page 25 or so for the Ignite Elemental Toolkit. So go ahead, take a look at those for the door knocking scripts, for phone call scripts. We have to practice our craft, because if we practice our crafts, we become masters of it. And when we become masters of our craft, that's when we start seeing the GCI start to skyrocket. Okay, guys, well, I appreciate you coming here and spending your time with me today about open houses. I hope that it got some value, or, for the older agents out there, you could reevaluate some of the things and say, oh yeah, I remember doing that, or that's why I have to go make those, calls every time I do it, or door knocking. And, go ahead and take some time to just work on your skills. We're finishing a little bit early. I like to just go about an hour and 30, but it looks like we're an hour and 16. So how about we take the rest of the time to get a quick coffee if you drink caffeine, if not, some water or tea, and then just work on your craft, do a little bit of script practice, and then let's try to find some open houses for you guys and maybe do some lead generation. Okay, guys, signing off. Thank you.
So sorry,
Thank
Nick.
you.
One last question.
Oh yeah, what's up?
So sorry. You know how you had one slide in regards to the Monday through Friday, what you do in
Let me
preparation?
find that.
Sorry, it was a little fast for me. Do you mind actually just briefly going over that one once again?
Yeah, of course. So, a lot of times with open houses, especially for the newer agents, if we don't have open houses to host ourselves, we need to find open houses, right? Because open houses are such a great tool for low cost for high reward. So something that you can do is you should have a schedule planned out for your open house. So Monday, that's going to be when you plan for which open house you're going to do. And you can look up the broker codes for both Silicon City and I think it's Santa Clara, KW Santa Clara, the other one as well, the other office. And you can see what the active listings are. And then just call the agents and ask them if they're hosting an open house and if they would let you open it for them or co-host with them. If they're not hosting on Friday, something else you can do too is you can ask, say, hey, can I do a twilight open house on Friday from 4 to 7? A lot of times they'll say, yeah, sure, do it. So Monday, you want to track down your target for your open house and get it confirmed. After it's confirmed, Tuesday, you want to start making the marketing material. So that could be the flyers that you pass out. Again, List Reports is a really great resource that I mentioned before. You can download the flyers, you just pull the listing from the MLS, and then you get started with that. And then you also want to go on Tuesday to your title company and your title rep. And there's lots of different applications, like Title Toolbox is what I use with Fidelity. And you want to pull a farm around the open house, and you want to get the phone numbers from them. And then you also want to get a walk list from them to see, who's renters and who's owners. And then you want to start doing your door knocking. You want to start doing your calling and just, call around. Again, you can do a script just like the door knocking with the calls. Just, hey, this is Nick Rowe. I'm calling because I'm hosting an open house on Saturday. The owners wanted me to invite you. Just keep it short, keep it quick, because you never know who you're talking to and what they're in the middle of. But, just come from value. Then Wednesday, you want to get a little bit more serious with doing the posting on social media, and then also continue your prospecting. So you might do a post to your sphere of influence. Thursday, you might want to start running your ad on social media. So your media ad that we did through command, where you just go in and you make maybe $20 just to the area around there. One thing for the ads that I do have to note is they only let you market within a 15-mile radius. So it's a little bit difficult, especially with how nuanced things are in the Bay Area, because you could be marketing most of your ads for East San Jose when your property's in Milpitas. And you're like, well, it's not apples to oranges, but it is good because you do get exposure for it. And you can also post your social media ad on your page for your sphere of influence to see. And when you get the views, because you're paying for the views, it makes your sphere of influence say, look at that, he's doing pretty good, or she's doing pretty good. Then on Friday, you want to, again, go around for your invitation for any other doors that you didn't do. And you want to have everything ready to go for your open house day. And then Saturday, we'll call that the start of the open house, arrive 30 minutes early, and then just go over the whole situation. Did that clear it up?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay.
And then what day again did you do the door knocking?
Well, ideally, we should be doing lead generation every single day, right? So if you have an open house and you have a reason to do lead generation, the best practice wouldn't be doing door knocking just one day. It would be doing it every single day. And same thing for the calls, right? Every day, minimum of 3 hours, we should be doing lead generation. And if you're doing an open house, that's a perfect way to sort of kill two birds with one stone, right? I have a brother-in-law, actually. He was a Mormon in the Latter-day Saints church. And when he went on his mission, I was talking to him about it, and they plan out their day in 15-minute increments. And every time that's not accounted for in their book for what they have to do, they're out door knocking. And we're just trying to sell people's houses. They're converting people to a different religion. It's a lot easier to sell a house than to, have somebody change their belief system. So, just I like to sort of use that as sort of a golden rule. If I'm not doing anything, I should be either door knocking or picking up the phones.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I think that's gonna about wrap it up, unless there's any final questions. Okay, thanks guys. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you.